in-person learning. So we've got a little presentation for you. We've got some frequently asked questions that we'll kind of go through it, and we'll stop occasionally and just ask questions. I think Mr. Weber's on the call. He can also take questions in the chat if you're able to access the chat. Kind of depends on how you logged on, whether or not that's possible. We're a small group, so it's not quite as important as if there were 50 or 100 of us on here. So glad you're here. These are just a couple of reminders. We are still planning to do a pickup for if your student is staying completely remote. We're doing that Monday, February 1st. That's the day where it's a teacher work day, and we're going to do that all day. And so we're continuing to put that out on social media and sending out reminders so that everybody is kind of informed if they're making the decision to stay remote. So a no student day that day. And then if you are an 8th grade parent, please make sure you're turning in your high school registration forms, because quicker we can get those in, the better chances our students have for getting one of their top choices for high school. So going forward, we've been through a lot of transitions this year, some more favorable than others. This one is a tricky one because most of our surrounding districts have returned face-to-face, and OPS has some of the most vulnerable kids. We have more food insecurities than a lot of our surrounding districts, but we're not face-to-face. We were hopeful as well that it would be after the vaccine came out, and then we'd all be going back together and it'd be a little more safer. But we are at this point where a decision had to be made. There are constituents on both sides on we should stay, we should go. So we're moving forward with 2 options. One is to stay home fully remote for 5 days, and then the other one is to return to 5 days instruction. And we've got families that are choosing both. That is very fluid. And so parents, we've had a few parents to change kind of back and forth. We understand that. When that process happens, we do have a process in place where we assess how many numbers are in each class, because we are trying to be very careful about our physical space in our classroom. So if you're on the fence, please do call the school when you get ready to make that decision, and ask for Mrs. Langford or myself. And I think Daniel Chips as well, and one of us can kind of walk you through that process.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take over from here. I'll talk about what it looks like when your child comes into the building. My name is Mrs. Langford. I am one of the assistant principals, just in case I haven't met you. So our procedures for entering and exiting the building have not changed if your child has been with us through the 3-2 model. Students can enter the building at 7:20, and they will either go to breakfast or one of the locations by grade level. 6th grade auditorium, 7th grade is the gym, and 8th grade is the gym as well. They split the sides, and students are socially distant in those 3 areas. We also release students from those areas in a staggered manner, which allows for a smaller number of students in the hallways. We also have staggered passing periods, and those transitions last, I want to say, 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes there will be a bell, and students are dismissed by the content area. That way, again, we have a smaller amount of traffic through the hallways, and students will be notified by their teacher on which bell they are to transition. We've had some pretty good responses to that. Students just go directly to where they need to go. Let me see. As far as lunch procedures, we had to bring in a little bit more seating. Students will be facing the same direction, so there's no students sitting across from each other. We anticipate masks will be off for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you know, middle schoolers, they don't take a lot of time to eat. And then they do put their masks right back on. When they wait in line to get their lunch, they are standing 6 feet apart. We have them seated about 3 feet apart, and we can fit roughly 100 students in there. So we've kind of doubled our capacity since going from the 3-2 model to the 5-day model. We have we have 4 lunches, and those last 30 minutes with 5 minutes in between so that our custodians can do a cleaning before the next group comes in. They always clean, but they do the COVID cleaning where they use the school or district sponsored cleaning that was given. As far as restrooms go, there are 2 students allowed in the restroom at a time. Custodians also clean those restrooms between classes and after passing periods as well. Are there any questions before I move on to the next slide? All right, CK, you want to go ahead and for our cleaning of our classrooms, teachers do use what's called QT3, and they use that after every class period. Students can be in the classroom when they spray it. We typically will have students line up either inside the classroom or outside the classroom. We also have students lined up outside the classroom when we have those staggered passing periods, and again, they are spaced apart, and then students can enter the classroom. The procedures are pretty much the same in terms of instructional materials. Students will not be sharing instructional materials. They will continue to use their iPads, so students should bring their iPads fully charged, and they should also bring their chargers. We find that by lunchtime, students do need to charge their iPads. They are allowed to carry a book bag. There aren't any locker use at this time. We do have some clear book bags that we gave away to the student body back in the fall. So if your child is interested in a clear book bag, they can come see any one of us at the main office and we can get that for them. Teachers will continue to teach remote students as well as in-person students. The concurrent teaching is something that is an art form, but I think our teachers have done a great job of trying to do that. We do know that students who are online aren't as engaged as they should be and as engaged as teachers would like them to be. But teachers will continue to utilize the best instructional practices for instruction to get students engaged. Some small group work might be happening. It really will be up to the teacher to use their professional discretion in terms of what the classroom is going to look like with students moving around. Do we have any questions regarding the classroom environment? All right, CK. And I believe this is Miss Payton.
Hi, I'm Miss Payton. I am the 7th grade Dean of Students at McMillan. There's a couple things that are going to be consistent after school. Lions Pride, which is our after school program, which is partnered with the YMCA. They will run from 3:30 to 5:30. In the past, it's been 6:30, but we currently have one late bus, and so 5:30 is the latest. Right now it is in person only, and they are currently working on getting a remote option for the kids who are full remote. In conjunction with Lions Pride is a tutoring program called Macademics. Macademics is running on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour. They're doing an in-person and remote. Academics is mostly for, there is some tutoring that is involved, but it's a lot of if kids need help with their homework or have missing work or need to take a test after, or they had missed. And so now that, you know, if they need to do that after school, they can. The last thing that we are doing after school is something called Mac Academy, and it's skills-based tutoring based on test scores. It's basically an everyday invite only. We recruited kids for this. We have language arts tutoring going on right now, and then math is going to start up pretty soon. But we target kids for those who we call our bubble kids, and we base that on our NWEA, those are our district tests, and then our NSCAS, which is our state test scores. In our bubble kids are, you know, basically those kids who are 5 to 10 points from hopping over that line of passing. And so we want to target them, and when we want to get them over the mark. So that's all the after school stuff.
Your microphone's not on, Weber.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Curtis Weber. I'm the athletic director, assistant principal at McMillan. Good evening, everybody. We should have started this week with some skill development. However, due to the snow days, our 3 days at home remote learning, we have not been able to do so. So beginning tomorrow, boys and girls basketball will start. After school, they just need to have the appropriate paperwork filled out, concussion form, physical on file, as well as the athletic contract. So we will be holding that skill development every day after school between starting tomorrow with the L through Z group for this week, and then beginning next week with the 5-day in person up until spring break. We are very hopeful that after spring break that we have spring sports, which is boys and girls soccer, as well as boys and girls track. We've had some conversations, and we are very hopeful. I do see Mr. Tony on the call, I believe. Your wife emailed me just this morning regarding season 4 and boys soccer. So we are very hopeful that we will have some competitions because that's how kids get better. So that is what we've got for athletics. Any questions on after-school activities or athletics? Go ahead, Ms. Long.
Is there any chance that swimming will happen at all this year?
Unfortunately, not at the middle school level. Yeah, there was a conversation early on about the facility usage, and because of the fact that a lot of the high schools depend on, for example, North uses McMillan's facility, mixing those cohorts together, it was not going to happen citywide for the middle school level because it became an equity issue. So unfortunately, not this year.
Okay.
And correct, Mr. Wilson, yes, skills development are for 7th and 8th grade only.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Rawlings. I am one of the counselors who's blessed to serve your kiddos at McMillan. And since I have my son also in OPS, I wanted to be able to share about the things that were helping me feel better about my son returning to school 5 days. He's been doing the family 3-2 plan, and it all has to surround the health office. So what we're doing this year at McMillan is when students are requesting to come to the health office for those things that aren't regular visits that they need to check in with the nurse every day for, they take their iPad and they click one of the QR codes. We have them all around the building. We also have them for the counseling center. And then that message immediately goes to the nurse, and then the nurse calls the classroom. As soon as that student can come down, And the reason why we do that is because we are keeping kids separate in the health office. There's only a minimal amount of kiddos that we have in there at a time. And so we just want to make sure that we're keeping all of our kids safe in all of our spaces throughout our building. And so that's something that we implemented for the health office. And then the next slide is talking about COVID-19 and how that's affected through the health office. So what will a school do if a student has symptoms of COVID-19? Throughout all of the schools in OPS, we are making sure that all of your kiddos are safe and all of the staff are safe. So if one of our students is ill at school, they are moved to a designated space while staff work with family members to pick up that student. And the symptoms that the school will send a student home for, if they're new symptoms, there's the cough, the shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell, those things. Immediately, we will be contacting families for that pickup. And then the 2 or more of the following symptoms, which this list went home in a flyer and has been on some emails, which is that fever, the chills, muscle aches, headaches, sore throat, nausea, or vomiting, because we know that throughout this season, we still have the flu and other sicknesses. So we're watching all of them, not just always jumping to that COVID-19. And then those symptoms do require, if the symptoms above happen, a student will be home for 10 days. Or will require permission from a healthcare provider and to be fever-free, or that negative COVID result and fever-free. So health assessment questions that families are asked to review every day. Ask your kiddos about those symptoms. How are they feeling before they come to school? And checking the temperature. We gave out thermometers at the beginning of the year. So that way we could make sure that families would have that available to them to make sure that we could all be safe. So if that assessment of those symptoms at home happen, then kids are just staying home. And I know that our parents are doing that and following that, because they usually follow up with one of us counselors to see what they can do to just make sure that their young person is able to stay on top of all of their academics. And I believe I have one more slide. Okay, so you may have heard about UNMC Protects. This is an incredible partnership that we have at McMillan. We are so blessed. It's between OPS, UNMC, and Charles Drew. It is a voluntary program for students. All of the staff are able to do this, and we are doing it. But we're able to get tested for COVID regularly, which is going to be once a week. Things that would throw it off would be like, 3 remote days because of snow. Students will not be tested without parental permission. There's proper paperwork that needs to be filled out, but it is a very simple saliva test. It's very easy to do. It's very quick. We're able to do it during the school day without them missing class for very long. Highly recommended, very easy to do, but this is just one more precaution that we are doing at McMillan, so that way we can keep all of your kids safe. And if you have any questions about that, the nurse is available to answer any of those questions. Thank you.
I don't know if Joel is on the call, but we wanted to just make sure that and that anybody else that if their family has kids at McMillan, that we do have some really good community resources that are available. And then in-house, we have our food pantry, and then we have just a couple of different funding sources that we can also help with social emotional needs of our kids and families. And you can access those resources through our social worker. So we wanted to make sure that his email and phone number were listed on this presentation as well for you. This is just a few reminders. Again, we're keeping the same time. School is starting at 7:45. Students can enter at 7:20. Go to those separate locations that you heard about earlier where they're socially distanced and masked. We keep a package of disposable masks at the door. We do know that sometimes kids forget. We also still have some packages of those keep masks, those black ones that are packaged. We still have those available in our front office as well. No school February 1st. That is the day that we'll have a pickup for any students who are remote. And just remember to check your email on Infinite Campus for any messages to keep you updated, and also on the emails. Those come out every Sunday from Mrs. Langford. All right, guys, what questions do you have for us? Go ahead, Ms. Long.
Okay, I have two. One about the saliva test. If a student is not opted in weekly, but they show some signs of COVID, could they get a one-time saliva test?
So do you mean remote students?
I was thinking more of in person, but probably either would be a good question.
So the way that the program is kind of set up is that once staff and students have registered, every week on either Tuesday or Thursday, UNMC sends us just a comprehensive list of everybody who's registered. And it's sort of self-serve. And so once they're registered, they are tested once a week. And I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't think the plan is for us to hunt anybody down to get a test, but as long as students are in the face-to-face 5-day, they can access those tests. And the idea, I want to make sure that I answer your question, but the idea is just so more of us are comfortable about who's in the building at what point and what, those symptoms are, so that if we do have a positive case, we can isolate those immediately. Did that answer your question, Ms. Long?
It does, to a point. What if, I guess just a follow-up is like, what if there's a kid that you take to the nurse's office and they're not on the list and they have symptoms? Would you test them?
No, we would not. We can only test the ones that parents have given consent through that initial registration. That's a good question.
Okay. Thank you. That answers it. And then I have a question earlier. I know that you have to pack a lot more kids in at lunch, and I just wondered if you've seen any schools that also can't be socially distanced during lunch, and how that's gone in other schools.
Because the process has been so fluid, honestly, what we have right now is just very small lunch groups. Most days we're not even filling up like half of the cafeteria. And so we kind of have, we have some overflow space that would be in our gym hallway for if more kids decide that they want to be face-to-face. But we have not seen, we haven't had a time yet where we could not like socially distance everybody that came. We also have some teachers who are asking, Ms. Langford will have to help me. I want to say maybe 3 teachers who are going to be doing lunch in their classrooms as well. But we have not had a problem, just because this virus has just been so, so scary for everybody, that everybody's really doing their part to make sure that we're separated. And our kids generally, this, like they eat so quick. We look up and they've taken a couple of bites and they already have their mask back on. So people are really being cautious right now.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Absolutely. Who else? This is called teacher wait time. Anybody else have anything else they want some clarification on?
Dr. Green, this is Alexa. I know we had a pretty high number of kids who were staying remote even through 3-2. Do you have a sense of how, like, what percentage of the kids do you think will stay remote with the move to fully in person?
Yep, I will default to Miss Langford. She keeps track of those.
So we're about 40% of our kiddos are remaining remote, but like Dr. Green said, we get calls every day, all day, with parents deciding to go remote or stay in person. And it is, definitely a personal decision. But right now, we're a little bit under 50%.
Great. And I also wanted to say thank you all for putting this together and for doing this. Has been helpful. I kind of hadn't wrapped my brain around the idea of going back to school all the time again and getting Audra up every morning, which will be interesting.
Right.
It's definitely something to wrap your brain around. And I think the kids are kind of in the same space. Like, we get so excited just to see the kids in the 3-2 model, that we're just like, hey, what's going on? I mean, I've talked to your daughter about her grandmother so many times, just because, like, we're trying to engage the kids and get them to talk to us because we miss them so much, and they're just kind of looking at us like, back up, weirdo. Why do you keep talking to me like that? And so it's a lot. It's been a lot of transition. You guys get the COVID, quote unquote, COVID letters from me. And it probably seems like a lot, but our numbers have been really low. And what's interesting about our cases is that I think all but 2 or 3 have been people getting COVID outside of our building. And so when we first started, we had a couple of staff members that had to quarantine because right before that, there was a teacher work day and a couple of people went out to lunch together. And so, they still were kind of in the mind frame of, this is not going to happen to us. And so, when we go through the process of contact tracing, the trace nursers ask those questions like, have you been around anybody at the building during this time frame? And so when we first started, we had a couple of situations like that. But after that, our students and our families have been COVID cases that have occurred where people were exposed to the virus outside of McMillan. And so we're not happy that people are being exposed, but we have been really, really, really blessed to not have those exposures in our building. And our operations team, they take very good care of our building. People in our building, I feel, are very diligent in trying to keep all of us safe. Other questions? I also noticed that Carrie Pratt is one of our teacher parents or parent teachers, I don't know which one comes first, who is going through this process of trying to make the best decision with her son as well. And, we want to make sure that we understand where you guys are coming from and help with any of the uneasy feelings that you have. But Ms. Pratt, if you are still on the line, can you talk a little bit about you and your son?
Yes. Yeah, we are going back. He's going back in person full time. With me having to work and, teach the students, he's here and doing his thing. And, he doesn't really, he doesn't learn online very well. He needs the social interaction. And I know McMillan's doing everything possible to make sure it's safe for everybody. And so I'm looking forward for him going back. He's not looking forward to it because, of course, he won't have his phone and his extra little nap time. But I know that he'll do a whole lot better when he's in person with the teachers there and with the other students.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Pratt.
Yep.
Anybody else? Mr. Wilson? Mr. Tony? Nothing else, folks? You guys know where you can find us. If you think of something else after this evening, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us. You can call the school. You can email us. We have people that reach out on social media, but whatever we can do to help with your decision making and having you be comfortable with being in the building, we are happy to do that. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. We'll stay on the call in case there are any questions that we can answer.
I just want to say thank you as well. You've answered my questions, and thanks for doing such a good job.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that feedback.